So, I think this is it. Hello everyone, welcome back to Sleepless Studies. If you're new here, I'm currently sitting at a 1510 and I'm working towards a 1600 on the SAT. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I will be solving SAT questions with no prep whatsoever. So this is not just another SAT explanation channel, but we actually are focusing on the approach to solving SAT questions. So we don't focus on memorization, but we focus more on an investigation. So here we are going to be using the evidence approach, which is basically approaching questions like a detective, right? My goal today isn't to get every question right, but is to build a way of thinking that you can use on every SAT question. So whether I solve a question immediately or have to work through it step by step, you'll see exactly how I approach it in real time. So it's time to be a detective again on the SAT. And let's open our first case, which is question 18. However, before we move on to question 18, I would like to go back to question 17, which I got wrong on the last stream, and that is the only question I got wrong. So I'll just go over the question again so that you guys can have additional clarification on this question, and yeah, let's get to it. So question 17 here, which choice most logically completes the text? This is actually testing you whether you can read this entire paragraph and understand what it's talking about, right? It's not testing you on a lot, it's just testing your reading comprehension. So if you have good reading comprehension, you'll be able to answer this question. So the main evidence we can salvage from this mess here is that there are intervals of coarse grains, but then, oh my goodness, what did I click on? Hold on. What? Huh. Oh well, that's quite unfortunate. What did I just do? Okay, there we go. So, as I was saying, there were intervals of coarse grains, and there are some fine grains that shows signs of cracking due to episodic desiccation. And we figured out last time that episodic desiccation means occasional drying. So coarse grains are sandstone, which are flowing water, right? And fine grains are mudstone, which is in low flow water, meaning the water is not flowing. So the correct answer is that a lake existed for a long period. Why? Because most of the sediment consists of fine grains. Fine grains are mudstone, and mudstone is in low flow water, meaning a lake. So that means that there was a lake, right? However, the fine grains are showing signs of cracking due to episodic desiccation, occasional drying, right? And that fits the case. And then there are periods in which one or more streams were present. That is because of the coarse grains. There are intervals, meaning there's sometimes were coarse grains, sometimes there's none. And that is sandstone, which is flowing water, which means streams were present. Streams were present some periods of time. Last time I read it wrong, and I thought the episodic desiccation is the coarse grains, right? I just misread it. That's why I chose D. Here the stream Option D says that the streams experience occasional drying, which would have been correct if I didn't, if I read it that way. So it is really important to read every question thoroughly, and it is very important not to be messy, as you can see here. Last time I made quite a mess, drawing lines everywhere, right? I mean, the lines help you see the important points, but sometimes it's just better to get a pen and paper and write that down. But I don't have a pen and paper with me, so you're gonna be seeing this all the time. Hello, chat. Unfortunately, I am the Sherlock Holmes of the SATs. I am Sherlock Holmes today. And that's how we can easily get questions correct, okay? You gotta be Sherlock Holmes, not just a student. You need to understand what the question is talking about, find the correct evidence to support your answer. The evidence approach is really simple. Basically, you read the questions and then you find the key information, the evidence, and you find the answer that it points to. And it's a given that you don't read the question wrong like I did. Right? So let's move on. We have around 15 or so questions, which is fine. I'm confident in finishing everything early because these are grammar questions, and grammar questions is basically just odd one out. I'll get to that later, but let's start with question number 18. Take a moment to read this entire paragraph because it's quite the chunk of text, and then we'll discuss the answer together. Okay, so did you guys chat? I don't have an ID to prove I'm Sherlock Holmes. You can tell by the number of questions I get correct, okay? Keep in mind I did not read the answer sheet beforehand. So I'm just as blind as you guys. Anyways, I think I got the basic idea here. Let me grab a pen. Here. So basically, 550 BC, 98% silver and 1% copper. That's a coin. A coin from 550 BC, there's 98 silver and 1% copper. But then 367 BC is 74-ish silver and 24 copper. So it's not as pure, right? You see here the silver content is high, and here it's really low. If it's below 80%, it's not suitable for trade. However, this is below 80%, so it's not suitable for trade. So a crisis happens because they don't trust the money. And it was relieved, meaning it was solved. Despite Sidon's persistent oppressive financial obligations, meaning they got money problems, but they somehow solved the problem, you know. As a result of this guy, which is 367 BC, so the successor, mean the guy that comes after him, this guy made a decision that solved the issue. And to solve the issue, you should probably raise the silver content to higher than 80%. which option A says that you raise the silver content to higher than 80%, which in theory should solve the problem. Because if it's under 80%, they don't trust it. But if you raise it, then it will be fine again. Keep in mind, this is not like keep in mind this is not economics class. I mean, in reality, you will have to like do a lot more than just say you're gonna lower the thing. However, but let's just move on. Option B says keep the amount of silver but decrease their weight. That doesn't solve anything. The problem here is the silver content, not the weight. Minting heavier coins, that still does not solve the problem because the proportion is still the same. The problem here, you can see, is that the silver content is below 80%. This does not solve the problem at all. The solution to the problem is to raise the silver content above 80%. So the answer should be A. As simple as that. Any questions, chat? If you have questions, you can ask me in the chat. So let's move on to question 19. So this is a grammar question. Okay, so one rule of grammar is subject-verb agreement, right? However, the verb here is committee. And committee can either be singular or plural, which kind of sucks. So one thing we can do is look at the tense around it. Like you look at other sentences and see what tense is in. It's in present tense. Because it's in present tense, you would expect this to also be in present tense. So it's probably C. However, the verb here is already decided. Decided is already the verb. So you already have a subject. You already have a verb. Right? So this becomes useless. Because you have a subject and a verb, this cannot be a verb. So it cannot be that or that. You cannot use including because just read it, okay? Including would be a gerund, but you need something other than that. So it would be D to include. The Olympic Committee once decided to include. So the answer is D. Yeah. This should be simple to most of you guys because if you speak English, you would know that is to include. If you got questions, ask me, chat, and we'll just move on to question number 20. So here, let's see. Subject is here. This is a sentence. This is a verb. We need a verb in here. The tense is present tense, I think. Never mind. It's not present tense because it's talking about 1613. So 1613 is in the past. So this is the only. Never mind, that's two. C and D are both in past tense. In 1613, a prop canon. Never mind. Has is present perfect tense. Right? This is present perfect tense. And more function is the only one in past tense. Basically, just read the context. You have a subject, you're needing a verb. This is in the past, so you need a past tense verb, and these are the only past tense verb. This is in present tense, present simple. This in future simple. This is in present perfect, so it's only D that is in the past tense. If you got any question, ask me in the chat. And let's move on to the next one. So this one is checking your punctuation, because you see everything here is only different because of the punctuation. So they're definitely checking your punctuation. So we need to look at the context, right? A portrait of novelist Zadie Smith is displayed. Okay, so portrait is the subject, this is the verb. Normally, you won't need any punctuation. This is a prepositional phrase describing the subject. So you won't need any special punctuation because it's just a prepositional phrase that comes directly after the subject. So you don't need any extra punctuation, so it would be C. Okay, let's move on to question number 22. When a given industry, whatever. I'm too lazy to read. This whole thing is a clause. So this is starting another clause, and it's an independent clause because this is a dependent clause. This is an independent clause. So the problem here is this. They differ because of this noun. You need to find the correct noun to replace. What is it replacing? When a given industry carries high startup costs and other barriers that when that happens, so the industry often consists of just one or two suppliers per municipality. We need to find what these pronouns are supposed to refer to, and it's referring to the industry. So I don't think it will be these or they or this. My reasoning is it describes industry the best because these and they are plural, and this is very vague because you have an entire dependent clause in front of it. So the answer would be C. If you guys have questions, ask me in the chat. I'll try to answer them once I get to see them. So as I was saying, grammar questions, they are pretty simple. Every grammar question is different. Some of them you need to find the odd one out. Some of them you need to read the context, and some of them is about pronouns. This one is about punctuation because spotting the difference, you can see that the punctuation is a thing different for every option. So the punctuation, so this is a sentence. This is a sentence, right? This is an independent clause which connects to a dependent clause that would probably end right here. Managing items managing. The dependent clause does not end there. If you read the context, this, this, how do I do this? Okay. This until items is an appositive phrase, so you can just ignore that. However, within the appositive phrase, wait. Okay, so if you remove the appositive phrase, whatever follows, this is a list, okay, guys? It's a bit hard to see, but it is actually a list. Overseeing, managing. Right. Okay. This list is really complicated. Appointing. Overseeing, managing, appointing. Let me just clear it out for you guys. So right here we have a list, right? Blah blah, 1, 2, and this is not a J, this is a semicolon. Because within the list there's commas like for the appositive phrases, you actually use semicolons instead of commas for this list, right? So the answer would be C, because managing is the start of a new item in the list. The list, if you remove the appositive phrase, let me just do that for you guys. These include overseeing the Library of Congress collections, managing the Copyright Office, and appointing the US Poet Laureate. So this is the list. However, because you have appositive phrases in between, you will have to use a semicolon instead of comma in the list, because the appositive phrase is already using commas. If you use commas for the list, it will be very chaotic. And the general grammar rule is to change the commas to a semicolon, because you have commas within the list, if I'm making any sense. Grandma? What grandma? Chat, what grandma are you talking about? Anyways, let's move on to question 24. So, what is this? Still punctuation, I see. To manifest the warm and welcoming atmospheres. So, normally in solving grammar questions, I prefer to read just the sentence we are looking at, right? I would normally ignore this unless I need to find missing information that you can't find in here. For example, context or the tense used. So, to manifest the warm and welcoming atmospheres that are a signature of her work, though she occasionally relies on more traditional art techniques, such as painting with watercolors. That thing up until work is not an independent clause. It cannot stand alone as a sentence. So it cannot be that. Never mind. Yeah, it cannot be C, because that would separate the clause and make it a sentence on on its own, but then because it's a dependent clause, it can be used as a sentence. Though she. Okay, let's just read it for context. Digital artist Chen primarily uses a suite of software tools to create illustrations for children's book. Though that means though here is part of the first sentence. Which means it will be A because you want though here to be part of the first sentence. It would probably be A. D cannot be because it would still separate it into two separate sentences, and you can't make this dependent clause a separate sentence. So it would be either A or B, but then because though here would be part of the first clause, because though is part of the first clause, there would be a comma after it. Let's move on to question 25. If you have questions, ask me in the chat. So let's check out question 25. Let me just grab a drink of water. They are hardly pristine though. Okay. They are hardly pristine. Should be able to stand alone as a sentence. And the next part, though many Klondites, blah blah blah, is also able to stand alone as a sentence because they have a subject, verb, and a complete thought. This does not have a subject, verb, complete thought. Okay. So here is the subject, verb. The problem here is you also need to know this is the same as the one above. You need to know if though belongs in the first or second clause, so you know where to exactly divide it. Klondites are stony meteorites that are undifferentiated, which means their contents have not melted or separated. They're hardly pristine, though many Klondites experience what? Okay. Okay, so though here belong in the second sentence because it's presenting something different, an exception from the first. So that means the answer must be C, which separates it into two and leaves though on the other side. You can't use A or D because that would be a run-on sentence. So let's just cross that out. Though if you're using B, then though would be on the left side. You don't want to separate though like that. You want though to be on the right side because this entire thing is a contradiction or an exception from the first sentence here. So the answer would be C. If you got any questions, just ask me in the chat. Let's move on to question number 26. This is also testing punctuation again. Okay, that the geographic blah blah blah. This is the I think that should be the whole phrase that is the subject. This is the verb. Okay, so establishing until divisive, div, yeah, that is not an independent clause. That's a phrase. So that means it can be this one. You can't just put it, just join it to the main sentence either. There must be some form of punctuation. So you can, it can either be A or B. A semicolon, you usually do that if you're adding additional information or something. However, it's not really clarifying anything, so it would be the best fit to just use a comma to divide the phrase from the main sentence. If you have questions, ask me in the chat. Let's move on to question number 27. Okay, so now we have transition questions, I see. Five transition questions. Okay, so we need to, for transition questions, we need to read the whole thing, get a general idea of what each sentence is talking about, and then we can choose a transition that fits with the theme of each sentence, that connect the two sentences, right? So this is saying the tower is rotating. This is saying the city officials closed the area. So because the tower was rotating, the city officials closed the area. So because means cause and effect, or as a result. It's that simple. You just get the main idea of the question, the sentence before and the sentence after, and then you just choose the transition that would connect both ideas. Because the tower was rotating, city officials closed the area. Because it's a cause effect, so it would be as a result, which is also cause effect. It is a good idea to predict without looking here. Just choose a word that you think would fit here and see what the word is closest to. However, that is a bit risky because you can interpret words in different ways. But then it is also a good strategy. And I don't have anything against it. So the model is revealed that supernovas that created the local bubble are also responsible for new stars. The model details how the bubble's expansion trapped interstellar gas and dust that became stars on there. So this right here is like a more in-depth explanation on what the model is. So it's expanding on top of the thing, so it can't be admittedly or however. Hence is like cause and effect. This did not cause this. So the answer must be specifically, because this is clarifying this. This is clarifying this. If you have questions, ask me in the chat, because this is saying that supernovas that created a local bubble also formed new stars, and here is explaining more detail about the model and how they arrived at the conclusion. So the answer would be D. Got questions? Ask in the chat. I'll be moving on to question 29. Cultivation, trade, transportation of maize and wheat. Reconfigured. Okay. Let's read the whole thing for better context. So they're saying that the foodways underwent a radical transformation. Cultivation, trade, transportation of maize and wheat. So they're now, here they're just listing something general. Here they're listing something specific. So that would be A. Sometimes you don't read this and this, like the before and after, because the transition that is normally here, they moved it to the middle of the sentence. So you just read the sentence before it and after it. So if you find a transition, you read the sentence it is in and the sentence before it. In this case, it's just the entire paragraph. But you can save a bit of time if you can do that. Let's move on. Okay, so these two people want to develop a musical for them female actor friends to actually have good parts to play. Okay, so that is why they created the show 6. To that end. Okay, in other words, that is not rephrasing anything. In summary, I don't think that is summarizing anything. For example, could be and to that end. I don't know what that means. I never seen that before. I'm being completely honest. I don't know what that means. I should have done my homework. But I do not know what that means. And that's really unfortunate, chat. To that end probably means cause and effect. I'm leaning more towards cause and effect here, so I'm just choose D even though I'm not even sure what it means. Sometimes you just gotta take risks. And there's actually no risk in here, aside from me being embarrassed because it's not a real SAT. Anyways, let's move on to question 31, chat. If you have any questions, ask. Chat is quite dead today. I mean, chat is quite dead every day, but especially today. Right. As climbing these routes shifted from a mode of travel to sporting, modern wire ferratas. So wire ferratas is mountain climbing routes with metal rungs and cable. Are rarely designed to simply reach a summit. New routes favor recreation over utility, aiming to provide a challenging climb or showcase dramatic scenery. So this is describing a shift. These two are different. So it would be something like however, right? And the one closest to however here is on the other hand. However, I do not think that's the answer. Reading it again, I Chad, what fraud are you talking about? So let's just take this slowly because we have time. I'm leaning more towards this one. More often, new routes favor recreation over utility. That goes with a rarely designed theme here. So because of these words, I'm gonna go with the answer C instead of B, because this is not stating exactly a contradiction. Let's move on to question 32. Do you guys have questions about how I got the answer C? This is not a contradiction to this, okay? This is more like supporting because it says rarely designed. So the most logical transition would be more often, which complements this theme. Anyways, let's go, guys. This is the last two questions. Got questions? Ask me in the chat. I'll get to them when I see them. Right. The student wants to indicate the title of the novel that won the Nebula Award. Here, this is the title. The answer is A. Look no further. Wait, hold on. Let's just check. Yep, the information is correct. Normally, the information would be correct. However, sometimes the information is not correct. So you have to recheck. Don't be too hasty. Okay. Let's see what this one is asking us, shall we? You want the year Yosemite Falls was completed. So it's completed in 1930. Boom. That is super simple. You just identify what it's asking you. These type of questions. Identify what it's asking you. Find the relevant information here. Find the answer that matches the relevant info. And make sure to double check it's actually the correct information, because sometimes they want to trick you. Yes, sir. We can put the fries in the bags. Chat. Yes. We are done. So let's just check our answers. We finished early today. Normally we stay till 9, however we are going to finish early. Let's see. Okay, it's from question 18. What here? BDDCC. Also chat, just guess in the chat how many am I gonna get wrong today. I'll give you like 1 minute while I go drink some water. Got your guesses on how many answers I'm gonna get wrong? Any guesses? Okay, about 6 to 7 wrong answers. Seriously, dude? Like, that's half the questions. I can't get half the questions wrong. There's no way I'm gonna get half the questions wrong. Come on. Okay, let's go. It's module 2. Huh, okay. Interesting, it's B. I don't even know why it's B. 19 is D. 20 is D. 21 to 23 is C. C and C. Wow. 24 is A. 25 is B. Oh, great. I'll have to look at that later. 26 is D. Oh no. What? Oh, come on. 7 is B. 28 is D. 29 is A. 30 is D. Oh, look. We don't even know what that means, but we actually got it. 31 is C. And then it's A and C. Well, chat, I got how many wrong? 1, 2, and 3. Let's not start with this question. Let's start with the grammar questions because they're simple. So, okay. Dough belongs on the left side. Probably just a mistake on my part. Because from here to here is quite far apart. I don't think they're gonna put dough right there. So, yeah, my mistake. It would be B. Pristine means perfect, right? So they're hardly perfect. So these two sentences have the same meaning. It's just this one is a clarification of the one on the left, which means it would be better to put dough on the one closer to the one is contradicting. So you want the, what you call it? You want that thing, dough. I'm pretty sure it's called an adverb. Close. No, I don't think it's an adverb. I don't even know what you call it. But you want it closer to this clause right here, because that's the one you're focusing on. So it would be B. We're stuck between B and C. If though is on the right side, it would have been C, but it's actually on the left side. And that's what I'm trying to clarify here, because you want it closer to this sentence. Like, it makes sense on the right side also. It's just very awkward. So let's move on. Which one did we get wrong? This one. Uh, it's D. Huh. Yeah, I see how I got that wrong. Basically, I just read it wrong. And you see here, subject, verb. And that means you need a semicolon or a colon. But because it's not really clarifying anything much, you would rather use a semicolon to join these two sentences. I thought it was a phrase. It's quite. Yeah, I didn't see that. 6.7% wrong of all answers today. Seriously, chat. 6.7% of 15. That would be 2 questions. Right? That would be 2 questions. Anyways, what? We'll get to that later. Let's just think about the last question we got wrong. I don't even know how we got that one wrong. So we'll probably get back to that. We'll probably like get back to that next week. But I really want to clarify it right now. So let's just read over it a couple more times to see. Oh, yeah, it's definitely not A. You see this? It's not the pro. It's not saying that the percentage of silver in coins are going to be raised. It is setting a higher standard for the trade. So it's definitely not A. Whoa. I see. So it would have been B because you're keeping the amount of silver the same. But then you're decreasing the weight of the coins, meaning if you want to decrease the weight of the coins, you would have to take away the copper. If you're taking away copper, that means there's a higher percentage of silver. Oh well, it's just that I didn't read 6.7% of 15 is 1, by the way. So your guess is wrong, chat. Anyways, this is all because I didn't read it carefully. That's why you don't miss the keywords, guys. I messed up 3 whole questions today because I didn't read everything carefully. So let that be the most valuable lesson for you guys today. You do not want to get a question wrong because you didn't read it carefully. Right? So I think I have clarified everything, chat. If you don't have any more questions, chat, I'm not dyslexic. I'm just lazy and overworked. Okay. Got it? I'm lazy and also overworked. And that is why I want to end it today. If you don't have any more questions. Got any more questions? I don't think so. So that's all for today's stream. Got 3 questions wrong today, but learned a very valuable lesson. That is, you should read everything properly. It's kind of funny how I actually messed up 3 whole questions because of reading. It's not even because my reasoning is wrong. It's just that I read the whole thing wrong. So I hope today's questions showed you that the SAT isn't about making lucky guesses, but it's about following the evidence until you get the right answer. So if you have learned something or enjoyed studying along, I'd love to have you back with me during the stream. Tuesdays 8 to 9, Thursdays 8 to 9, reading and writing on Tuesdays, math on Thursdays. So remember not to guess, but you actually have to prove how you got to your answer. And you should probably also remember that you should read everything carefully. It doesn't matter how tired you are. You have to read everything correctly to even be able to start getting the right answer. So thanks for studying with me, and I'll see you guys next time. Chat, overworked from what? I don't have a job. Yeah, whatever, chat. This is it for today. And goodbye.